Om. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryankaravavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamudirayet. So we are doing the 62nd and 63rd verse. Two very important verses. And we came up to the nature of anger yesterday. I'll just quickly go through this. So this is the psychology of the negative spiral. Till now we saw how the positive spiral works, how to keep your mind and heart centered. So, ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषुपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहात् स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशो बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. In the person who dwells upon objects, an attachment is born with reference to them. From attachment is born desire, and from desire, anger is born. From anger comes delusion, and from delusion comes the loss of memory. Because of the loss of memory, the mind becomes incapacitated, and when the mind is incapacitated, the person is destroyed. Every desired object has its own peculiarities, its enticing qualities, and desirable attributes. The object is not desired for itself. It is desired because it is seen as desirable. The person being discussed in these two verses meditates on the peculiarities and desirability of various objects instead of meditating on the inner self, Pratyagatma. So he is not Atma Vasha but is Paravasha. One who dwells on a particular object and its merits develops a certain longing, a certain love or affection for the object. The word object here refers to anything that you think of and therefore includes people as well. First, you come into contact with an object or a person, and then when the encounter is over, it is over. Unless, of course, the object or person keeps coming back into your head. There is no reason as to why certain objects come back into your head. They just do. And when they do, you dwell upon them. An object that comes back into your head and goes away again is not a problem. Any experience leaves a certain memory, smriti, and because of the impact of the experience, the whole scene may be played back in your mind. This in itself is not the problem. What happens, however, is that you begin to like the object and begin to dwell upon its desirability. Even at this stage, there is no real problem. Dwelling upon the object is what is meant by meditation here. Meditation meaning constantly thinking about something. It may be something about a person that you keep dwelling upon. The person's dress, jewelry, voice, speech, mannerisms, decorum, thinking, hair, nose, eyes, or height, all of which represent the countless varieties of objects upon which you can meditate. Meditation is the flow of thoughts about an object and anything connected to it. Sajatiya Vritti Pravaha. The meditation of attachment. Krishna was not talking about the person who meditates on the Satchidananda Atma, even though the person he was discussing may be smiling while meditating. The smile is only because of the memory of some compliment or other. It's a smile of elation. It's a smile of elation, and this elation is what is meant by attachment sangha. There is a certain love, a certain affection that is developed for another person or an object, a sense of being pleased with the object. Otherwise, there would be no attachment. Once a smile comes at the thought of the object, it means that attachment has already been established. You cannot discover affection for anything without first dwelling upon it. A person may develop affection for a cat merely by continuing to think about it and caring for it. An attachment can also develop so that without the cat, the person finds that life is empty. If life is full only when it is full of cats and dogs, definitely we will find life full of cats and dogs. This kind of attachment can occur towards any object, a carpet, furniture, anything. Is it any wonder then that there is affection and then attachment towards a person who talks back nicely in a sweet voice that utters pleasing words? If affection for an attachment to a mewing cat can be developed, of course, a talking, smiling, thinking person is capable of evoking an even better response. Affection itself is no problem. The problem is this: whatever you like, you almost always want to possess. This is why Krishna said that desire is born from attachment. That attachment is the cause of desire. And because there are different types of objects, there are different types of desires: the desire to possess, the desire to own, the desire to experience. To create a desire, all that is required is a casual glance at a Caribbean cruise brochure that came in the email. In fact, the whole idea of direct mail is to create a desire in you that came in the mail. You may call it junk mail, but for those who send it, it is not junk. They know that someone will be attracted to the idea conveyed by the brochure. And to ensure that you do not forget, they also send you follow up literature. When the second brochure arrives, the pleasant memory that had been stored based on the first brochure comes to mind, and affection for the subject matter develops. From this affection alone comes the desire to to go on a Caribbean cruise. In this way, the desire to experience, to own, to possess is created. So the first thing is about you seeing an object and or hearing about it. And then that object dwells in your mind, and that dwelling causes eventually an affection for it. That leads to an attachment, and this attachment is the cause of desire. That sangha develops. Dhyayato vishayan pumsaha sangasteshu pajayate. So that sangha is what develops. And then from that desire is either the desire to experience, own, or possess. Not every desire can be fulfilled. Varieties of desires are born, depending on the objects for which you have affection and attachment. Desire also is not a problem, but once a well shaped desire has been formed, once it is no longer in the fancy state, you have to deal with it. You have to fulfill it, and this causes you to take action. If you can fulfill the desire, there is no problem. More often than not, however, the desire is not fulfilled. This then is where the problem arises. Not every desire can be fulfilled. It is not that easy. There are many obstacles that prevent the fulfillment of some desires. The problem comes then when the desires are not fulfilled and you become angry. The desire itself turns into anger, krodha. Thus, desire is the cause for anger, or, in the words of Krishna, anger is born of desire. If there is no expectation with reference to a desire, there will be no anger if the desire is not fulfilled. Suppose you want someone to do something for you and the person does not do it. If you knew that he or she might not do it, then there is no anger. But if you expected the person to do it, you will definitely be angry when it is not done. Even if the anger is not expressed, anger is born. The intensity with which you desire something is what determines the magnitude of your anger, and not the object itself. If your desire is such that it does not matter to you whether or not it is fulfilled, then anger will not be there. Even if it is, it will amount to very little. Whereas, if the intensity of the desire is great, the anger that comes from the desire not being fulfilled is not going to be easily managed either by you or by the person who happens to be between you and what you want. I repeat the sentence. Even if it is, it will amount to very little. Whereas, if the intensity of the desire is great, the anger that comes from the desire not being fulfilled is not going to be easily managed either by you or by the person who happens to be between you and what you want. If the other person is an obstruction to what you want, then your desire will turn into anger towards that person. If you expect the person to behave in a certain way and he or she does not behave in that manner, then the person will definitely be the target of your anger. And if that person's behavior is not according to your expectations because of another person, then your anger gets directed towards the other person. And sometimes your anger against the second may be more than towards the first. The nature of anger. Anger is always towards the obstruction to the fulfillment of your desire. In if between you and the object that you desire there is an obstruction, that obstruction is the target of your anger. The desire itself is deflected against this obstruction, and this deflected ray of desire is what is called anger. In this way, this anger is like the vinegar that may result when you try to make wine. Both the wine and the vinegar have as their essence the grapes alone. But the wine turns into vinegar. How? It too has its own story. The point here is not to avoid anger by avoiding desire. Rather, you have to remove the sting from your desires, for which a proper attitude is very important. That everything should happen as I want it to is not a realistic expectation. And such an expectation is due to raga dveshas alone. The raga dveshas, your likes and dislikes, have to be neutralized if you would like to be free of anger. Nor is it a matter of controlling anger. What does controlling anger really mean? The anger is inside and you are simmering, simmering, simmering until suddenly one day it erupts like a volcano. Once anger is there, what happens is only too well known. Aviveka, lack of discrimination, will definitely be there. In anger, you are not going to take the time to consider whether a certain action is proper or improper. You are not going to spend time considering should I kick him or should I punch him? Whatever comes first is what happens. Once anger is there, things just take place. What you do or say takes place of its own accord and depends entirely upon the past, your upbringing, and so on. There is no question of control here. The very meaning of anger is that viveka, with reference to what should and should not to be done, is lacking. And from this anger comes delusion, sammoha. What is being pointed out in these two verses is the process that takes place when one dwells on an object. There is no time involved here. Dwelling on an object implies affection, desire, anger, delusion, and more. Because of the delusion born of anger, loss of memory, smriti vibhrama takes place. The word smriti, memory, refers here to whatever you may have learned by studying the Shastra, whatever you have assimilated about right and wrong, whatever you have learned from your teachers, elders, and life experiences, what made you angry in the past, what happened, and so on. None of these you remember because delusion has come, and along with it, aviveka. Thus, there is a loss of memory with reference to all the wisdom you had gathered from your past education and experiences.
That anger is removed like a sting from desire. Can you repeat that paragraph?
Yeah, I will
I will
repeat all
repeat.
of this. I'll
Hmm.
repeat all of this once.
Okay, okay, thank
Once the wisdom of your past experiences, Smriti, is not available, the mind is incapacitated. There is buddhi nasha. Your buddhi now is incapable of analyzing whether something is to be done or not to be done because whatever wisdom you had gathered is not available to you. Delusion is like an inner torpor, a blackout that makes you forget the wisdom you had. Therefore, your buddhi, your intellect, is unable to do what it is supposed to do. It is incapable of giving orders to go ahead or stop in accordance with what is right and wrong. This is what the buddhi is supposed to do, but it is not available to do it. So I'll just go back here. The nature of anger. This is where we actually started reading today. Anger is always towards the obstruction to the fulfillment of your desire. If between you and the object that you desire there is an obstruction, that obstruction is the target of your anger. The desire itself is deflected against this obstruction, and this deflected ray of desire is what is called anger. Such a beautiful definition of anger. So, it is a deflected ray of desire. In this way, this anger is like the vinegar that may result when you try to make wine. Both the wine and the vinegar have as their essence the grapes alone. But the wine turns into vinegar. How? It too has its own story. Similarly, love distorted is anger. Love, when it's expressed in its pure natural form, is all the positive qualities. This we've seen before in the previous verses. Whereas when love gets distorted, it becomes all the negative qualities. It takes of the shape of all the negative qualities. Similarly, anger is deflected ray of desire. The point here is not to avoid anger by avoiding desire. Rather, you have to remove the sting from your desires, for which a proper attitude is very important. That everything should happen as I want it to is not a realistic expectation. And such an expectation is due to raga dveshas alone. The raga dveshas, your likes and dislikes, have to be neutralized if you would like to be free of anger.
Can you explain this paragraph little bit?
Yeah. So, what is meant by the sting? Sting is something that pinches you, right? Just like a bee sting. And a bee stings, what does that sting mean? It's something like a sting.
Actually, it is an abstraction. Means in the previous line, it said no that ob- the object is not a anger for anger, but the obstacle in achieving that object is
Yeah.
the anger, cause of for the anger. So sting may be like that.
See, the actual meaning of sting, there are different meanings. A small
Hmm.
sharp pointed organ at the end of abdomen of bees, wasps, ants, etc., capable of inflicting a painful or dangerous wound by injecting poison, or it could be also a carefully planned operation. That is different. So that the sting from the anger, that is, what is that sting? That means if I do not get what I want. So earlier we saw, if your expectations are fluid, they're not very uh, cemented, uh, uh, they're not firm, as in you want things to be done your way, that's it. And if that it does not happen your way, you are affected. Whereas if you do not have, you expect that the person will do or not do that particular thing, then whether it happens or not, you are not affected. So that sting from that desire is removed when your expectations are not there. I would not say expectations are not there, but your expectations are not like cemented. It should happen only the way I want it to happen. So the point is here is not to avoid anger by avoiding desire. See, because desire is the root cause of anger, you cannot say because to remove anger, I'm going to remove desire. Even a even because desire is what prompts action, and there cannot be anyone without doing any action. So desires will come, but you have to remove the sting from your desires, for which a proper attitude is very important. And what is that proper attitude? That the attitude that a karma yogi has. This is what I want, this is what I desire. But the outcome, whatever the result, I will take it as prasada. That attitude is what removes the sting from the desire. That sting is caused by very strong raga dveshas. That everything should happen as I want it to is not a realistic expectation. And such an expectation is due to raga dveshas alone. The raga dveshas, your likes and dislikes, have to be neutralized if you would like to be free of anger. Nor is it a matter of controlling anger. What does controlling anger really mean? The anger is inside and you are simmering, simmering, simmering until suddenly one day it erupts like a volcano. Once anger is there, what happens is only too well known. Aviveka, lack of discrimination, will definitely be there. In anger, you are not going to take the time to consider whether a certain action is proper or improper. You are not going to spend time considering should I kick him or should I punch him. Whatever comes first is what happens. Once anger is there, things just take place. What you do or say takes place of its own accord and depends entirely upon the past, your upbringing, and so on. So we see how the deflected ray of desire is anger. And how do we handle anger? If you control your anger, you're only suppressing it. It's like a volcano, it can erupt any time. So, letting go of that raga dveshas or neutralizing them. How? With a proper attitude. There is no question of control here. The very meaning of anger is that viveka, with reference to what should and should not be done, is lacking. So once anger comes, it takes one like a storm. What goes after anger comes is Viveka goes. All that we studied about real, unreal, changing things, about Atma, Anatma, all that takes a toll. And from this anger comes delusion. The very meaning of anger is that Viveka, with reference to what should and should not to be done, is lacking. It's an important sentence. So, the very fact that you are angry is that there is no Viveka. Because of lack of Viveka, you are overcome by that anger. And then from this anger comes delusion. What is being pointed out in these two verses is the process that takes place when one dwells on an object. There is no time involved here. Dwelling on an object implies affection, desire, anger, delusion, and more. So, all this can happen in a split second, and that is what happens. Because of the delusion born of anger, loss of memory, Smriti Vibhrama takes place. The word Smriti, memory, refers here to whatever you may have learnt by studying the Shastra. So we need to understand what the meaning of Smriti meant here is. Whatever you've assimilated about right and wrong, whatever you've learned from your teachers, elders, and life experiences, what made you angry in the past, what happened, and so on. None of these you remember because delusion has come, and along with it, aviveka. Thus, there is loss of memory with reference to all the wisdom you had gathered from your past education and experiences. Once the wisdom of your past experiences, smriti, is not available, the mind is incapacitated. There is buddhi nasha. Your buddhi now is incapable of analyzing whether something is to be done or not to be done because whatever wisdom you had gathered is not available to you. Delusion is like an inner torpor. Torpor means a state of lethargy or inactivity, a blackout that makes you forget the wisdom you had. Therefore, your buddhi, your intellect, is unable to do what it is supposed to do. It is incapable of giving orders to go ahead or stop in accordance with what is right and wrong. This is what the buddhi is supposed to do, but it is not available to do it. So, what is the down spiral? First, there is an object that comes into your awareness, and then you dwell on the object. After having dwelt on it, what develops is sangha, the attachment. Affection first comes, and then attachment. And then springs forth the desire to have it, to possess or to experience it. And with the desire comes the expectation that it should be like this or it should be like that. And when that expectation becomes very strong, then when your desire is not fulfilled, there would be some obstruction. That is why the desire doesn't get fulfilled. So your anger gets deflected upon to that obstruction, whether it's a person or an object. And that deflected ray of desire, that anger, causes is the cause of delusion. First of all, it makes you lose your memory. First, there is delusion, and then krodad bhavati sammohaha. Sammoha smriti vibhramaha. So from anger comes sammoha, and from sammoha comes smriti vibhrama, which is loss of memory. And that loss of memory is what? Loss of the memory of what you have learned from the Shastra about what is right and wrong, about what is to be done, what is not to be done. And when that Smriti Vibhrama happens, there is Buddhi Nasha. Your Buddhi, your discriminating faculty, the Viveka, is gone for a toss. In fact, the very fact that you have anger, anger itself means aviveka. Because if you had viveka, you would not get angry in the first place. So there is lack of discrimination, which causes that delusion, and then smriti vibhrama and buddhi nasha. You're not able to take the correct decision as to what is to be done or what is not to be done. And then buddhi nashat pranashyati. That is why clarity in the mind is so important. And what Gurudev says, clarity in the mind, purity in the heart, and sincerity in action. In the absence of wisdom, impulse takes over. The buddhi is only available when wisdom is available. And in the absence of wisdom, it behaves as though it is not programmed at all. Impulse takes over. In other words, the buddhi is destroyed, pranashyati. The person is no more a human being and can be likened to an animal because he or she gives himself or herself over to impulses. The impulses take over and determine exactly what the person is going to do. It may be biting, kicking, screaming, hitting someone, or even committing suicide. When a person is controlled by impulse, anything can happen, and whatever happens just happens. Until anger comes, the person can be careful. But once anger is there, all caution is gone. The verbs used in these two verses are very revealing in this regard. From attachment, desire is born, and from desire, anger is born. At this point, however, the verb changes from is born to takes place. From anger, delusion takes place, and from delusion, the incapacity of the mind takes place. This shows how the person has no more any control over the situation. Once anger is born, delusion, loss of wisdom, and the destruction of the person just take place. Control is possible only before anger. Afterwards, what happens is history. Given that meditating on desirable objects creates problems for you, the message of the Gita is clear. Instead of meditating upon objects, meditate upon the self. Instead of meditating upon your own problems and inhibitions, meditate upon the Pratyagatma, the inner self, because if you do not, you will naturally meditate upon the objects, which is the cause of all your problems. So, we have to detach from the world of objects and attach ourselves to the Pratyagatma, the inner self. So, I will just repeat the last few lines, last few paras again. So, in the absence of wisdom, impulse takes over. So, buddhi is only available when wisdom is available. And in the absence of wisdom, it behaves as though it is not programmed at all. Impulse takes over. In other words, the buddhi is destroyed, pranashyati. The person is no more a human being and can be likened to an animal because he or she gives himself or herself over to impulses. The impulses take over and determine exactly what the person is going to do. It may be biting, kicking, screaming, hitting someone, or even committing suicide. When a person is controlled by impulse, anything can happen, and whatever happens just happens. Until anger comes, the person can be careful. But once anger is there, all caution is gone. The verbs used in these two verses are very revealing in this regard. What are the two verses again? ध्यायतो विषयान् पुंसः सङ्गस्तेषूपजायते सङ्गात् सञ्जायते कामः कामात् क्रोधोऽभिजायते क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः. See, it becomes bhavati. It is not sanjayate. क्रोधात् भवति सम्मोहः सम्मोहा स्मृतिविभ्रमः स्मृतिभ्रंशात् बुद्धिनाशः बुद्धिनाशात् प्रणश्यति. So from anger onwards it only bhavati, it only takes place. Till anger there is, it is born, sanjayate. So from attachment desire is born, and from desire, anger is born. At this point, however, the verb changes from is born to takes place. From anger, delusion takes place. And from delusion, the incapacity of the mind takes place. This shows how the person has no more any control over the situation. Once anger is born, delusion, loss of wisdom, and the destruction of the person just take place. Control is possible only before anger. Afterwards, what happens is history. Given that meditating on desirable objects creates problems for you, the message of the Gita is clear. Instead of meditating upon objects, meditate upon the self. Instead of meditating upon your own problems and inhibitions, meditate upon the Pratyagatma, the inner self, because if you do not, you will naturally meditate upon the objects, which is the cause of all your problems. Let's just stop here and then reflect on all that we have heard and share our understanding. So, very carefully selected verbs. Sanjayate comes up until anger is born. After anger is born, it just takes over. So, it is in a jiffy, in no time, that anger overpowers you, leading to delusion, loss of memory of all that you've learned, and buddhinasha. So, what can be how you can handle this is only before anger starts. The very fact that you get angry means that there is no viveka. But then anger is also part of our emotions. Anger can be of different types, like what Gurudev explained on the World Meditation Day. He says, anger, you're allowed to get angry as long as it is like writing on water. If it is that fleeting, that's fine. It does not affect you. But if it gets firmer and firmer and you're fermenting all that unfulfilled desires, that becomes an emotion that overpowers you. So how do we control anger or suppress it? No. We only have to handle the anger. How? By having a proper attitude, by relaxing your expectations, by accepting the situation, people as they are, by not seeing an intention and not being a football. So, when we practice all the 5 points that we've learned, then you're developing that proper attitude, and automatically your anger will get, you will have the upper hand.
The solution was meditating, means knowing the pratyaga. What was that sentence? Pratyagatma, attitude. How should be the attitude, and what should be done?
Yeah. So, instead of going bahirmukhi, you go antarmukhi and meditate upon the pratyagatma. So, given that meditating on desirable objects creates problems for you, the message of the Gita is clear. Instead of meditating upon objects, meditate upon the self, matparaha. Instead of meditating upon your own problems and inhibitions, meditate upon the pratyagatma, the inner self. Because if you do not, you will naturally meditate upon the objects, which is the cause of all your problems. So the mind is such, it cannot be free of thoughts, right? So that thought is what you direct. Where you direct the thought, is the thought going on and dwelling on the objects, giving the objects, people and situations and relationships and what have you, permanent residency in your house, in your upper story, without paying rent? They just come and live there. Do you want to do that? Or do you want to meditate upon the self? Just imagine if your upper story is full of nothing but thoughts of the divine, nothing but thoughts of the self, those different 6 different ways in which we can contemplate upon the self, upon the pratyagatma. What are all the 6 different ways? One is to think that it is Purna Atma, then Asanga Atma, Akartru and Abhoktru Atma, and Ananda Atma, and Sakshi Atma. So when you are contemplating on the self, where is the place for you to contemplate and meditate upon the objects outside? What you have to do, you will do. So, the life of a karma yogi does not just imply change in the attitude, but also what you're meditating upon, what you're contemplating upon. So you see, a karma yogi will not get angry because he is neutralizing his raga dveshas. That sting in the desire is gone. That sting means strong raga dveshas, not strong raga dveshas. I want this to happen the way I want it to happen. Or I do not want this and I don't want this to happen. Either which ways, you are stuck. And that sting of the desire is what causes anger. It's so funny that we are all actually, in essence, we are just that one Satchit Ananda Atma. But in the illusory world, we are learning about the Atma. That's such a wonder. Everybody share your thoughts.
Said about Sanjayate, that word, can you explain? Means it happens, just happens.
It takes place, that's it.
Hmm.
More control.
Hmm.
Like the downfall happened. Once the anger is there, it is automatic. It's like a domino effect. You cannot stop it there. But what your effort, your purushartha is only before anger is born.
Hmm.
And how that anger will not be there when you neutralize your raga dveshas. When
Correct.
what you expect does not happen, what is that inner attitude with which you take the result? The prasad. If you take the result as prasada,
Hmm.
yesterday, today is New Year's Eve, and we have satsang at the center.
Hmm.
So happens that I'm working in the afternoon. My timings are from 1 to 9, and the satsang starts at 8:30. And being the country coordinator, they all said, no, you have to be there. So I was initially planning be late, therefore I will skip the satsang. Because by the time I come home, get ready and go, it's going to be quite late. And then we have Manana again the next morning. So I said, no, let me skip the satsang. So then they said, no, no, no. And my sense of responsibility also, I said, okay, let me do my best. So I went to check whether I can leave hospital 1 hour early, whether I can, if the others are able to take care. But it so happens that um, the current head, she herself is leaving a little early. So, which means there is no way I can leave early. My sense of responsibility is with the hospital. I cannot compromise patient care. So, so initially there was this kind of dejection that, oh, and actually anger that I'm not able to, because my the desire was to leave 1 hour early. That desire got obstructed because of someone, and anger
Hmm.
actually sprout. But then I I let it, I mean, I just watched what happened inside of my mind. And then I said, no, if this is the case, then I will I'll finish doing my work till 9 o'clock, but I'll leave sharp at 9, and then we'll see what needs to be done. So, what I meant here was, if I had allowed that anger to ferment and boil, and it would have taken over completely. But because there was that little Viveka was still lingering on, that anger did not take the better of me. My raga for going home early, I was able to kind of um, understand that with a sense of responsibility that came up.
Viveka. Mm.
So once that viveka is gone, the anger actually sprouts. So what we can do is have the proper attitude. So my expectations did not happen the way I wanted it to happen. It was different. But how one takes that result, take it as prasada, then you are saved. You have neutralized your raga or dvesha, whichever. Mm. And yesterday I was sharing about my maid that, she leaves without completing the tasks given to her, and she sends a voice note. So yesterday morning we had to go out, my parents and I, for some official work. So she sent me a voice note again. She says, I was not able to complete this. So I was just laughing to myself. Thanks to what we did yesterday, thanks to this beautiful wisdom, I was able to step back and see, oh, because I'm expecting her to do everything that I ask her.
Mm.
And the moment I get to hear from her that she's not done this, what immediately springs forth is anger. But now, when with this knowledge backing me, if I'm able to relax my expectations and take whatever the situation is with a as prasada, and actually be grateful for what she's doing. I mean, she's doing a lot. She's also,
Mm. At least
rather
she has
than
done half the
saying,
work at least. Otherwise,
yeah,
who would
I would
have
have
done
had to
that?
do everything
Mm.
myself, no?
Mm.
So rather than be grumbling, I said, no, let me be grateful for what she's done. And that made a big sea change. That inner calm was not destroyed. Otherwise, that will ferment and ferment for 24 hours. And when I see her the next morning, because she is the the obstruction to my expectations, her attitude, her her behavior is what has caused me the anger. I will just yell at her. But now, when you don't see the intention behind her, whatever mistake or her action, then what flows is just love and compassion.
Uh, this is so sweet. But one thing I would like to also ask, yeah, if there is something which needs to be, which I think that needs to be corrected, I can say, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. See,
Take the
that was,
prasad, yeah, take it as a prasad, that is fine. Because and I know, like some for example, we are writing a script for children of Sanskar Kendra to you know mm, to perform on the stage when Gurudev is coming to Mumbai. So I
mm,
had written a script for the sutradhars, who are there's a teacher and a student. So it was like the best I could do. I just wrote for them, and then there is a team that we are working on. But of course, there is a time constraint as well. So I was aware that we found the time. It was a little in excess, because while writing, you don't know how much. But the best
correct.
part is like what all should creatively to be done. So yeah, it was done. So I knew it will be shortened, and maybe
Edited.
howsoever the team shortens it, I was aware. It's
Mm.
okay, I took it as prasad buddhi. But the child's dialogues are almost none now. So I think I should speak, isn't it? Yes, a few, maybe one dialogue, not taking much time. Three
Mm.
four Just 3 4 dialogues, to
Mm.
be added, isn't it? What do you say? What do you
Yeah, yeah.
suggest?
Of course, you can express yourself. But
Yeah.
again, you can just say and then drop it.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
You express yourself rather than it being smoldering inside of you.
Yeah.
Otherwise, see what is happening, you're just cooking inside again.
Yeah, because I have been cooking like this ki at least for because where the teacher is answering just the values, the teacher is expressing the values. That was also my suggestion. Let us focus on values. The scenes will be there and then the values will be there. So for that values, I said let it be a teacher-student dialogue where the student is asking an inquisitive question and the teacher is answering accordingly the
Mm.
value. So, but there should be at least one dialogue for the student, isn't it? What do you
Mm.
suggest? Yeah, only
Yeah,
teacher expressing the values, that will be a little boring,
right.
that is what I thought. Yeah,
You can mention, of course, you can mention.
yeah, yeah.
But then, if your expectation is that only what you have suggested is taken up, then again you will be prone to developing anger. So
Yeah,
you say what you have to say,
yeah.
and let your expectation be, maybe it will be taken, maybe it will not be taken. Does not
Okay.
matter.
Yeah.
When you're in
So
that does not matter zone, you are
yeah,
free from anger.
yeah. Yes, Didi. Great. It
But
really
with,
helps while going through these, through Bhagavad Gita in the morning. The whole day you're so calm because situations keep coming, no,
correct.
and there are chances of all the things happening
Yeah.
topsy turvy. But yeah, beautiful. Thank you
That
so
is
much.
why that's why in the very beginning Swamiji mentioned these verses are meant for both Viveki and Aviveki. Because Ragadveshas even a Viveki will have. A Viveki meaning a person who is pursuing knowledge, who's got that difference, knows what Atma Anatma is. He knows it as a concept. He's not become a Jnani. He's not a Jnani yet, but he's a Viveki. So this whole downfall of the how the desire brings you downfall, the genesis of anger and everything, is meant for both. So while we are on this path, we are still countless raga dveshas that can entangle us. So living a life of awareness and attaching to that inner self rather than objects outside, rather than people outside, rather than relationships and situations outside. That
Yeah,
is why it is said antarmukhi sada
Sada
sukhi.
Sukhi. Yeah, yes, Didi. So nice. Thank you.
But doesn't mean that you accept everything passively. That's why we've
Yeah,
got active acceptance.
yeah, yeah.
You mentioned that. That is also important,
Yes, Didi.
right?
Nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
We went beyond time, way beyond. So we'll stop here. We'll do verse 64 tomorrow. Now, I just wanted to know because today's New Year's Eve, most of us might have a late night. So, do we all want to come up again tomorrow? If everybody is there, yes, we will go ahead and have the session. From my side, I would want to continue.
Didi, we can have a little late so that you are also comfortable.
No, no, doesn't matter. It is because otherwise, this time, late in the sense, what time?
Maybe half an hour or 1 hour late, whatever suits you, because we are in different time zones.
Yeah,
For us, it is fine because
for you,
everybody comes.
it would be 7:30 the current time, so it will be 8:30 if we start 1 hour late. Is that okay with everybody? I think we'll just stay with the current time. Doesn't matter. We'll stay with the time that we have because um, yeah, let's not change that time. We'll do that, right?
Okay, sure,
So
Didi.
then we'll meet up. Whoever is able to meet will come up tomorrow, and we'll go ahead. ॐ लोका समस्ता सुखिनो भवन्तु ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ तत्सत् Shri Krishna Arpanamastu. Jai Gurudev. I will play Maya Panchakam today.
निरुपमनित्यनिरंशकेऽप्यखण्डे मयि चिति सर्वविकल्पनादिशून्ये घटयति जगदीश जीवभेदम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया श्रुतिशतनिगमान्तशोधकानपि अहह धनादिनिदर्शनेन सद्यः कलुषयति चतुष्पदाद्यभिन्ना न घटितघटना पडीयसी माया सुखचिदखण्डविबोधमद्वितीयम् वियदनलादिविनिर्मित्ते नियोज्य भ्रमयति भवसागरे नितान्तम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया अपगतगुणवर्णजातिभेदे सुखचितिविप्रविडाद्यहङ्कृतिं च स्फुटयति सुतदारकेहमोहम् त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया विधिहरिहरविभेदमप्यखण्डे बत विरचय्य बुधानपि प्रकामम् भ्रमयति हरिहरविभेदभावा न घटितघटना पटीयसी माया त्वघटितघटना पटीयसी माया